Hey everyone, Wazoo here, and I'm
Hello.
here. I'm joined with my host Collin.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Have you, Collin?
Just peachy.
Yeah, nice. This is the Summons from Gallifrey podcast, where we talk about classic Doctor Who, and this is season 2, episode 1, where we will be talking about the 25th anniversary special. Well, I guess it was the whole season was the 25th anniversary, but this one is a story called Silver Nemesis, which
Have,
stars Sylvester McCoy. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
I was going to say, have you seen it? Do you remember seeing it?
Yeah. I remember seeing it. I think just before we talk about that, maybe we'll just sort of remind, or not remind, we'll actually introduce people to what our format, what we're going to try out for our format for this season. And if you listen to any of the episodes from season 1, it was mostly just me recapping every single story, which was a lot of fun to do, but it took me like days to make all the notes for all these stories. So what we thought we would do this time around is Collin and I would kind of meet beforehand. We would talk about our memories of whatever story we were going to be tackling, and then we'll go away and see it, and then we'll come back and discuss what we thought of it. So I think that's going to be
And what's really great about this change is that I get to talk to Eric more often now because he's not busy writing notes for watching the shows.
so totally. I get to see my family a little bit more often, and like it's yeah, some of those, like, oh man, like when I did the war games, that's like a 12-part story, and man, that was just like binge, it was like binge watching a whole season on Netflix, right? So
Yep.
it's either The
Yeah,
Witcher
I remember.
or the war games. So
I binge watched all of those in order to catch up for that last episode for the season. So that
that's
I know exactly what you mean.
that's right. So also part of this, I just kind of thought of this tonight too, is that I'm not going to look up anything about the story before we talk about it. So I don't know what year it's in. I don't know anything like that. I'm only going from memory on the Doctor and the Companion. I'm pretty sure it's Sylvester McCoy and Ace, um, Sophie Aldred playing Ace. So I think for that I remember for sure. But I have seen it a couple of times, but it's been a good 15, 20 years since I've seen it last.
If
So
I've seen it, I saw it once.
you saw it once. Okay. Okay.
If I saw it.
So hey, how about a little game then while we get started here? How about you try and guess what the plot of this story is going to be based off the title, Silver Nemesis. Now, I suppose I could come up with some clues from what I remember, but maybe take a crack at it first, and then we'll
Okay. Well,
we'll go from
so
there.
being the Silver Nemesis and having quickly looked them up just briefly while we were talking about which ones we were going to do, I know that it's about the Cybermen,
Okay.
and so I'm assuming that they're going to come to the planet. They're going to try to take over the world and convert everybody to the updated humans, and Doctor Who's going to swoop in and save the day.
So
That's my guess.
that's a pretty good guess. I mean, I mean that's only the plot of just about every Cyberman story, but
Yeah.
that works. It works. It works. Yeah. I do recall that. I mean, you're right. I don't think it's any kind of teaser that, or any kind of spoiler that it is about the Cybermen. Um, I do seem to remember that this was like their first introduction in like a long time. Like ever since I think Colin Baker had a Cyberman story, a two parter.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
was Attack of the Cybermen, if I remember the name right. And they haven't been seen since. So this is kind of like their first reintroduction after a few years.
I'm just really curious what they're going to look like because I remember when we were watching through those earlier episodes when they were first introduced, it was, I mean, they looked like something out of some kind of horror movie or something. It
Oh
was,
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah.
And you
So
can imagine, like, I mean, it's kind of, I wouldn't say laughable, like looking at him nowadays with like 2022 vision, right? But I mean, imagine turning this on in like the 60s or the 70s and not even seeing anything like that before on the screen.
right.
like kind of like the Daleks, where it's just like, wow, like I mean they had to develop this out of thin air, and
Yeah, yeah.
so
If we were bringing somebody that was going to be the next generation of humans, what would it look like?
yeah, which I thought was really cool. Okay, so we got that so far. So
Given the fact that many robotic, with air bunnies, of course, robotic nemesises of the Doctor, because the Daleks could technically fall into that category as well. But given that
totally,
they actually titled it out with Silver, it makes me wonder if there isn't something that's going to tie in with another element being painful to them, or something. So I don't
yeah.
know.
It's kind of one of those multifaceted titles because I mean it's the silver anniversary,
Yeah,
so you've got that, and then you've got the Cyberman, which silver, and they are deathly allergic to gold, but
yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. That's it. I
yeah,
bet.
but
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe there's another twist there. Yeah, I think I remember a little too much about it to kind of drop too many clues because
Okay.
it would totally spoil. So so if you've seen it, you've only seen it once, and you haven't seen
Yeah,
it
and that would have been many years ago.
many years ago. Okay, so yeah, I won't say any clues or anything like that. It's been I recall almost all of the story, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Oh no, see, I can't say, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it. Let's see what else would. Okay, so how about this then? Before we get started, what is your favorite Cyberman story?
Oh, that's a good one. What was the one? It's actually a more recent one. It was where they got a person who was a strong, like a strong person in either in the military or in what's the unit, part of unit or something. They got her and converted her, and then she turned on them anyway. So she became a Cyberman, and then was able to come out of it and start using her Cyberman powers against the Cybermen at that point.
Okay, that sounds like a New Who.
Yeah, yeah, it's a new Who.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
yeah. I totally don't
yeah.
know.
I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Harriet. There was somebody else, and she may have been the head of unit, and they were doing some experiments, and the Cybermen were coming over through that, and then they converted her, and then she didn't. She had good intentions for the whole thing,
Right,
and so she was able to somehow get out of the programming part
preserve
of
some
it.
of her
Or
humanity.
yeah,
Okay. So I wonder if now that's interesting. I wonder if like the last unit story that we get in Classic Who is called Battlefield, and there's a UN leader there. Basically, the unit the main leader that the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart used to be.
hmm
Like she takes over basically for after he retires, but I don't know if she's related to him, if she's like some kind of like cousin, or if she's just genuinely like came up through the ranks and took over unit. So it'd be interesting if that's the same character. I kind of doubt
yeah.
it, but
I don't think it was, no, because
yeah.
it was new generation of folks.
Okay.
um, but it's interesting you say that. So you're bringing up a lot of we've talked about this before. I'm much more affluent with the new Who.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of the old Doctor, but I didn't. Like it would only come on PBS or something every once in a while, so I didn't get to see it with any kind of regularity at all.
Okay. Okay.
We didn't have cable or anything, so I didn't get to see it. I saw it few and far between, if I get up early enough in the morning or something. But the new Who stuff I know very well, and there's a lot of interesting tie-ins back to old stories and how things like Unit got started, and where their names came from, and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
maybe I'll have to hunt some of those down. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that actually, because I really did not like the, oh man, I'm gonna screw up his name again. Christopher Eccleston. There we go. I got it. Eccleston. Right away, like one of the things that they were leading in the media buildup to the season was that they were totally just ignoring their show history. It was like a reboot, almost a hard reboot of the entire franchise, and they didn't acknowledge anything about the history of the Doctor until basically like Tennant took over from him, right? Is like he came, yeah. So until Tennant came on the scene, then they slowly started to weave in the classic history that the show has. But during during the first like the Eccleston's period, it was like almost painful to watch, because it was almost like, he'd be tackling like the Dalek, like he'd be talking to the Dalek. There was one episode called The Dalek, and he'd be tackling that, and just totally, I don't know, like just the tone was off, because when you're trying to ignore 26 years of the show history, and then suddenly kind of selectively bring it back again, then it just makes it a little bit weird. Okay, but back to Silver Nemesis. So Ace and the Doctor, what do you think about Ace and Sylvester McCoy?
I haven't seen enough.
Okay.
Honestly, I've only seen that last episode when they were, I forget the name of it, but it was the Planet of the Cats or whatever.
Okay.
When
Survival.
And so yeah, that's it, Survival. So that and that was, I thought, pretty good, but I didn't have enough history with either one of them to like. The Doctor, of course, you have history with no matter what, because he's the Doctor. But whoever his companion is, if you don't have, it's hard to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not committed, but it really, I cannot think of the word. So it's hard to be involved in the character if you don't really know.
I see. Okay.
Well, yeah. So, like, I was like, okay, it's another companion, and so I don't really know. I don't have that history with her to really know how much that was or it wasn't her.
Yeah. No. And yeah, you're right. You're right. I think there's been a lot of companions where they just kind of hung them out to dry in a few ways. Like they didn't really fully flesh out the concept before they introduce the character, and then all of a sudden they've got someone new showing up, and now they've got to figure out what to do, and I always felt really bad for Adric. Matthew Waterhouse. Well, I mean, for a few reasons, but one of the main reasons was like, from what I looked into when I was covering some of those episodes for the first season, is that they had this concept for Adric, and all of a sudden they've got like Logopolis. The first half of Logopolis is just the Doctor and Adric, and they were kind of so worried about the two of them alone together that they decided to bring in Tegan.
Right.
And she's amazing, like she's totally overpowering. Like as soon as she shows up in the TARDIS, she's taking control, like taking over everything, right? And Adric is, he worked really well with the Doctor when it was just him and the Doctor together. They played off each other really well, but he would kind of fade into the background when the others would show up. So it was a little bit unfortunate that they kind of just didn't give him a little bit more time to develop a bit, right? And but whatever. It's just interesting to watch anyways. Okay.
So
let's go off and watch Silver Nemesis.
Excellent.
For 25 years now, the Doctor has been shuttling through space and time.
The Doctor's not getting through to them.
The Time Lord returning to Earth to begin a brand new adventure, Silver Nemesis.
I give you the fourth one. What is happening, my lady?
You're leaving, Richard. Destiny beckons.
This may qualify as the worst miscalculation since life crawled out of the seas on this sad planet.
Doctor Who, a legend in his own time. Wednesday at 7:35 on BBC One.
A legend in his own time.
Yes.
So that was the trailer. So, oh boy.
All right, so let's just get it out of the way. As I stated earlier, and I haven't heard the edit of it, but as I stated earlier, we can't hold it up for its production quality, because if we do that, nothing's going to hold up.
I know. I totally agree. And I don't even know if it holds up on the story. It had a lot of problems, I thought, but maybe let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So I guess, okay, well, why don't we start overall first impressions?
Okay. I rather enjoyed it.
Okay.
My beautiful bride fell asleep several times during it, watching it with me. But I think, honestly, on the story, yeah, there could be some changes made to it, but I think it could be done today.
Could be done today? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of gaps, I felt like, and I don't know if that was supposed to be part of the mystique of the Doctor, as you know, with the question marks all over his shirt and
Right.
on his umbrella and everything, and he was, well, I know who the Doctor really is. Well, I know he's a Time Lord. Yes, but do you know who he really is?
Right.
So there were some gaps that I was like, I don't know, and I don't know the story behind Ace calling him Professor rather than and the Doctor. So she kind of went back and forth on that.
Right.
So there were a few gaps in that, and I thought they left it open well, so they could bring back the Nemesis in the future, and I don't think they have.
Right. No, I don't think it's ever made an appearance again either. Yeah. I would say, okay. I'll try and look at it from a positive angle. I think the one issue that I have with a lot of Sylvester McCoy stories, and it isn't just Silver Nemesis, it's quite a lot of them, is that they start with a pretty decent idea, and if they just gave it a couple more weeks to work through some of these story issues, that goes for like quite a lot of them, in my opinion, in the Sylvester McCoy era, because they come so close, and that, like, you can see where they're going, and okay, this might be a really good gem of an idea, and a lot of them, they just can't stick the landing. Like, in this one, I would have just cut out everything with the neo-Nazis. I think that was
completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it was completely. It was almost ridiculous. Like, why are these people even here? And it's in typical Doctor Who fashion. You've got, like 4 people who think they can overthrow the world.
Yes, and they're all trying at the same time.
Right, and like it's their leader call themselves the Fourth Reich, and they have 5 or 6 of them in the room, and if one of them catches a cold,
they're going down.
That's like 25% of their force, down. So, I mean, it was a little bit strange, that they chose to spend, they had a lot of location shots for the filming, for their introduction at the mansion and all that kind of stuff. Like, they had a lot of location shots, and they really, I was really laughing when the camera was panning over the guy's desk, and it was just, every stereotypical imagery of the Nazi era in Germany they had in that frame, right? I mean, everything. Yep. And it was, I just had to laugh at that. Like, it was, but like, again, like it was the start. I think the start of a good idea. I like the idea of this comet that the Doctor threw out into the atmosphere at some point. I think being an anniversary special, like it definitely did not feel like
Did not feel like that.
any kind of an anniversary special. Like what might have been really cool, like again, if you had taken a few more weeks to kind of drill out the story, what if they had worked in something where he found a diary and a previous incarnation of himself had done this, had battled Lady Peinforte and ejected Nemesis into space, and then which would explain why he can't remember anything about it.
Right. That would make more sense because we don't really know linearly how long. We only know from like a time standpoint.
Yeah.
But that was actually brings up a point in my head that I was thinking is like they did not shy away from any kind of corny joke regarding time travel. I'll tell you about it. 350 years ago, they get into the TARDIS. Okay, it's 350 years ago. So this is.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had to laugh, and it was kind of funny. I did laugh. The scene I did like was when they hitch a ride with what's her face, the American.
Yeah.
And she starts, I traced my genealogy back to this area, and it turns out, it's a blood rival of Lady Peinforte, something like that, So
she was the most real character in the whole thing. The one from. She was from West Virginia. Is that what
it might be something like that, right? I mean, they
don't talk like that in West Virginia. I thought she was like a oil tycoon heiress or something.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, she had a pretty small role, but I thought it was a pretty funny, and they played it for better for worse. They played it straight.
Yep.
Her companion Richard. That was his name, right? Richard?
Yeah. Richard something.
Yeah. And so, he played it totally straight. I mean, like so straight that he didn't even pause when he was dropping a lot of these jokes, and
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, no, and
I have figured out how to hail one of these chariots. The cars are going by. So I thought that they overdid it a bit with, well, why aren't your bones here? So that was foreshadowing that she was going to become the Nemesis, get absorbed by the Nemesis. That wasn't clear.
Yeah, that wasn't too clear. They kind of left that pretty vague. Yeah. And it was kind of funny how the Cybermen were expecting her to be going insane from seeing her own grave, and instead she was just whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yep.
No, that's a good point.
I planned for this.
I totally didn't. That didn't click with me. You're right. That they foreshadowed that with with what they brought up there. Yeah.
Yep. The other thing I noticed, there was some editing issue because the leader of the Fourth Reich, earlier you have those two guys that came out and shot at them when they were crossing the bridge, and then they stopped and fell into the water.
Yeah.
And so those two guys had on the headphones to look like they were partially in transition to become Cybermen themselves.
Right.
And so then later on, the guy in the Fourth Reich, when they captured him in the crypt, he was sitting there with the headphones on also, as if they were like in the process of trying to convert him. They were questioning him.
Okay.
And then a few moments later, the doctor shows up, or no, Lady, what's her name showed up?
Peinforte. Okay.
Yes. She shows up, and then he's suddenly fine, and the two of them get out of there somehow.
Right. Right. A little bit of a continuity error. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I think I remember that now. Yeah. They kind of never bothered to. Yeah, it wasn't clear if that was an interrogation device or like a brain melting.
Yes. You will become one of the Borg.
That's right.
I wonder if the Borg got the idea from this, from the Cybermen.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either.
To some capacity.
So on the Cybermen, I have my book the vault of Doctor Who, and I looked back at all of the different incarnations of the Cybermen. And so that was the last time we saw the Cybermen until they showed up in the new series.
Yes.
And that look was originated in like 1967 or 1968. So that was the last time that they showed up. So it was almost 20 years later, and it was exactly the same design for their character. Because when they first came out, you remember it was that god awful thing with the lips, and it
Yeah.
was mostly cloth looking.
The hoses and all that.
And so
Yeah.
there was like 2 more iterations of that costume before it landed on that design. There were several episodes in the 60s with it, and then the last one was in 67 or 68, and then that's the same one that showed up in that Silver Nemesis episode.
Well, because they also had the Peter Davison story,
Mhm.
and I
That's
think
right. That's right.
and I think that was in the early 80s. Had to have been.
Yeah, it had to have been, but it was still the same design.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a new design now.
They just rejigged the voice to make it a little more
Yeah,
menacing.
they just rejigged the voices again. Yeah, and they don't seem to have that hive mind so much.
Yeah, they at least they don't act like it. And I found that it was maybe I'm just overinterpreting, but I also found that if you see Earthshock, maybe don't see it just in case it shows up on our random list. But
Okay.
a lot of the dialogue is like just like copied almost directly from that, and the Five Doctors special. Sorry, that was the one I was thinking of, the Five Doctors special. So they show up in that, and a lot of the lines are like almost one for one the same in this. So I don't know if they were like trying to like give fan service, and hey, remember when the Cybermen, said this really cool thing and everyone loved it, let's kind of do it again. So but you're right. They weren't really acting like normal Cybermen. It was just kind of like
And they were what?
No, just that they were just sort of robots. That's it.
Yeah. So one thing that I didn't understand was how they knew to be there for that event. And they're in space already, so couldn't they just scoop it up? Why did they have to wait for it to crash land?
Yeah, maybe because they didn't have the elements. They didn't have the bow and the arrow. But you're right.
And they knew that she was going to show up with the arrow.
Yeah.
Or the bow.
With one of the pieces, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
There's quite a bit of continuity issues in my mind because of things like that. So the bow disappeared and was supposed to be on display someplace, and then it wasn't, and then
Windsor
the
Castle.
Fourth Reich got a hold of it somehow because they somehow knew about it. Yet back 350 years, she's there plotting to go forward and take care of all of these things in time because the Nemesis told her in the past all of these things.
Right.
Somehow.
Right.
And so
it's like they had tea or something. I mean, from what it sounds like, she had quite a long conversation with Nemesis. It wasn't
and then wrote all of it down.
Yeah.
Even though she disappeared. So that the Fourth Reich people could pick it up and know of its existence and know why it was significant.
Right. I am kind of speaking of that, or building on that. I am kind of glad that they didn't bother explaining much of that whole time travel process where they drink a potion, they hold the arrow, and bish bash bosh, they've warped ahead 358 years.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of just
precisely.
Yeah, precisely.
There was no mucking about in hyperspace, as they say.
That's right. That's right.
So the other thing I didn't understand was they portrayed her as a terrible shot with a bow and arrow in the past, and then she gets into the present or the past present,
Right.
and is suddenly able to hit all these Cybermen dead in the
Sharpshooter.
chest.
Yeah, I know. You're right. You're right. That I didn't clue into that either. Yeah, you're right. But you're totally right. I wonder why Richard wasn't the one shooting.
Well, he was, but he's. We've only got one arrow left. Quick! What was he shooting at? Nobody knows.
So he's worse. He just panicked.
Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh.
And I thought there was going to be more to the safari thing. They had the sign up that said that this was like a safari land and like beware of the animals and whatnot. And then they only showed llamas
Oh yeah.
or emu.
Maybe that's all the permission they could get filming.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I did love the use of a giant boombox. So he created a giant boombox for her to play the cassette.
Right.
She's really into jazz, and because that's what kids in the '80s were really into, right? But then the part that kind of threw me a little bit was when they are kind of skip walking along, carrying this giant boombox that's like massive on their hip, whistling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of the blue, and they're just going along whistling, and
there didn't seem to be too much what do you call it, like seriousness to it. You know what I mean? Like the doctor wasn't really taking anything really seriously at all, and except for the very end, right close to the end when Ace suddenly gets very, oh my gosh, like what, this is really serious what we're about to face here.
Yes. And then she runs along. Oh, quick! Let me get my slingshot, and I'll just go out and bring in all the troops after me. They'll chase me, and I'll shoot them down with the slingshot. You go sit there and mess around with whatever you're doing on that spaceship that we can't really see.
That's right.
But I'm really scared and worried.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was a few issues.
Yeah.
A few
issues aside, again, I think the story could be reworked into something.
Yep.
I would have liked to know more about how in the world living steel from Gallifrey makes its way across the universe and crash lands on Earth, only to be formed into a statue by a woman in the Dark Ages.
Yeah. Excellent question. Excellent question. I think I've read the novelization. I think, and if I have, I can't remember any kind of explanation about that either. So, I think that's a really great point. Yeah, they there is quite a lot, and I would say that this is kind of the point in the Sylvester era where they start to build him up as this like 5D chess player.
Yes.
So this is the point where that kind of kicks in, where he's instead of just running around and reacting to the situations that he's in and coming out on top by the end, this is more as he's carefully been placing pieces, and then this is just part of that game, right? And for a few of the stories after this, they are doing a good job at building out that imagery and building out that kind of storyline for him, so that it does slowly start to work, especially by the time they get to survival with the cheetah people.
So that's interesting because Ace beats him at chess at the end.
I noticed that. Yeah. So I don't know if for some reason he just let her win, and why, we don't know, but
yeah, and we'll never know.
Nope. I don't know if they've ever asked him during fan interviews, but who knows?
Why did you let her win?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and even when
what else?
Even when he's playing with Lady Peinforte, like he's moving the pieces around
Oh,
on
yeah.
the board, you know. Let's see, I'm trying to think of.
And who was that scholar supposed to be? Because I'll invent a flying machine.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the world. Quick, let me kill you.
Yep. We need his blood. Uh-oh. Now we know where this is going. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't really I don't remember seeing him as being any kind of significant. I'm glad they weren't like just name dropping, you know, oh, it turns out he's you know, Voltaire or something like that, right? And
Yep. And the doctor did go back and say, wow, he's actually quite a learned man. He was able to work this stuff out in a mere few months after I left.
yeah. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yep. I thought that the boombox / jamming device / video display from outer space with the VR or augmented reality thing was pretty cool for the time. Having the bubble come up on top of it, that was interesting. It looked like they were pulling around some kind of a audio console from a recording studio or something.
Yeah.
If you took a good look at it, but it was an interesting concept in there.
Yeah.
I
I liked it too.
I thought it was very cartoonish when they went into the water and he came up and spit out water like 5 minutes after they've dragged themselves out of the water. So they're dragging themselves out of the water. He's helping her up, and then they pan to him. Water shooting. Like, wouldn't you have done that earlier?
Well, and again, they kind of. I mean, that was pretty good. That kind of falls in line with his. I mean, he has a bit of a slapstick streak.
Yes.
To him, so that I think that was pretty cool. But you know, again, like there's no feeling of seriousness or something because they just sit there on the bank exactly where. I mean, they weren't even you know, they might come back.
Why would people be trying to chase us?
Yeah.
Well, why are you still sitting there? Yep, I asked that question of myself. Why are they just sitting there if there's people are shooting at them? The other one was when they were jamming in their jam session. They were jamming the frequencies, and they were laying about and switching hats and
Right.
Yeah, back to that kind of slapstick. There was a lot of that going on through the whole episode.
Yeah, so it was hard to with kind of those changes in tone. It was kind of hard to, you know, take the material with any kind of seriousness at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I don't know, man. If they didn't remake it, but they continued the story, I would watch it just to see what's happening with. Did the Nemesis explode? Did the Nemesis live on? Because he said the Nemesis asked him at the end, and then you'll set me free, and he said everything's imperfect still.
Right. We'll see something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that would actually be like an interesting follow-up to see.
Because we don't really know what that imperfect means.
Right. Yeah, if it means a defender of Gallifrey or something like that. No, you're right. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so what kind of rating would you give this out of 5?
Out of 5, 3.5, maybe.
3.5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think I would go for a 3. It was not bad, but it as we kind of talked through a lot, it did have some of its issues, and it was great. A lot. I mean, you can still see a lot of the chemistry between Ace and the Doctor, which is great. In their first meeting in the season before this is where when Ace first meets him, she refers to him as Professor, and that's sort of how he takes on that role when he's sort of looking out for her.
I see.
So that's why she's only when she calls him the Doctor. Supposedly, what they've tried to do is when she calls him the Doctor, then she's like really serious or really, you know, like the gravity of the situation is hitting her. but when she's, every other time, it's just professor.
I see.
So
That makes sense.
So yeah, that's Silver Nemesis.
Excellent.
Cool.
Good
That's
choice.
yeah.
I think it was a good start.
I think so too. That's one under the belt, and yeah, that's it for me. Oh, what?
Do we have any place for people to reach out to us?
Oh, I'm glad you
Just
brought
wondering.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Collin. Yeah, if you send an email to mailbag@summonsfromgallifrey.com, then just let us know your notes, or you can comment on the video on YouTube when this is posted, or when you get this from wherever you get your favorite podcast, you can leave a rating and a comment there.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well,
I guess I'll catch you on the flip side. Huh?
Yeah, that's it for me. That's it for me, Eric, and this is my co-host, Collin.
Good day, everybody.
And we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, everyone.